Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's Take 30 on data protection, not if, but when. This is our third in our June series of 5 episodes talking about various data protection subjects. Today we're talking about encryption and ransomware. I'm joined by Anna Krzyznik and Nicole Payne. My name is Jeff Spiro, I run the information management practice at Ironside. We're here to help you make better decisions about your data, and obviously security is a big part of that. We also do a lot of work in other areas ranging from strategy, visualizations and dashboards, experience design, master data management and governance, advanced analytics including machine learning, as well as my practice, which is information management, data modeling, data warehousing, cloud data warehousing, MDM, which I mentioned, and governance. We also have a hosting and managed services practice. So we have many ways to help you come up with the right solutions for your data. We do our own Take 30 series. This week is talking about our modern analytics framework on the 17th. That's Thursday at 11. So we would be quite eager to see you over there for that. On the 24th, we've got a session on cognitive analytics, reviewing modern data approaches. So we would encourage you to register for those, as well as the rest of this series, which is running every Tuesday at 11 through June. So thank you all for attending. And with that, I will pass it over to Anna.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Hello, everybody. My name is Anna Krzyznik, and I'm a cybersecurity technical specialist in the consumer and travel market, and I specialize in data security. I'm based out of Austin, Texas, but frequently am in Dallas as well. So if you're ever in the Texas area, please reach out and we can have a meeting face-to-face. But with that, I'll go ahead and get started with today's use case. And like Jeff said, that this will be on encryption and ransomware, and I'll take us through a use case of a patient intake coordinator being a victim of ransomware and how we have policies in practice to protect them from their files getting completely stolen and being a true victim to a ransomware and phishing attack. But before we even get started, I want to ask the following 3 questions and have you think about these as we go through the slideware and go through the demonstration today. Now, first of all, do you understand how ransomware really works? Now, especially because of COVID, the amount of phishing and ransomware incidents has increased a very high amount over the past few months and year due to all of us working remotely at home. So do you understand how it's really working in the background? Also, what do you think you can do to protect against this type of threat? You can secure your network and all of your perimeters and microservices, but what are the additional things you can do from the data side of things to protect yourself and your colleagues from being a victim of ransomware? And then finally, can you think of an instance where someone you know or yourself was a victim of ransomware, whether that be through your personal email and being subject to a phishing attack, or whether that was at work? I know many organizations go through a security practice internally and they have fake phishing and ransomware attacks to have us train in order to not be a victim and have our organizations compromised. So can you think of an instance that may have happened to you, or is there something that your organization is currently put into practice in order to make sure that you don't become a victim of ransomware? Now, to start it off, I wanted to show the entire Guardium data encryption platform. So Guardium Data Security Manager in the center here manages the encryption process and manages the policies and agents, and is the core of everything that you're working with within this platform. Guardium Database Encryption on the right side for files and databases is what we'll be talking about today. And this, as is said in the description, is protecting your files and your databases. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through the entire GDE platform, but if you have questions about any additional parts of the platform, please let us know and we can go more in depth, offline or one-on-one. So let's take a look at how GDE, Guardium Data Encryption Policies, are built. Everything around GDE is built around policies. So much like Guardium Data Protection, it is policy-driven. These policies have 3 types of users that you can see here on the screen: authorized, privileged, or deny. Users then have access to your systems based on a number of different factors: resource, user, process, action, and then the effect or what is taken action afterwards. So first of all, what is it you're trying to encrypt and allow or disallow access to? And this would be your resource. Who is that user? Are they an authorized user, a privileged user, or a denied user? What is the process? So it's not just can they access a certain application or a part of your system, but can they access it from this particular process? So for example, it could be a DBA coming in from SQL Plus under Oracle. They can't access certain data into your organization systems. But if it's a DBA who happens to be an employee of the company and they're trying to access through, let's say, the HR application, then they should be able to access. So it's a process of they might have the same role, but they're coming in and having a different process and need to see different parts of the information. What is the action taken based on that? Is it a read or write, metadata only? And then finally, what is the action that we are going to take on them? It's not just allowing or disallowing access, but it's also having an audit trail of who or who does not have access. And here in the bottom white box, you can see all of these audit logs are secured because they are hardened appliances. So all of the logs are locked down. And all parameters of when they're accessed, what they had access to, and the actions taken on it are kept track of in these audit logs. So this is very key for the auditors that are coming in and needing records of what has happened in your organization. So now let's dive into the use case. And on my screen, you'll see a beautiful little puppy, and we'll kind of explain what happened to Sully and why they're needing our help today. So Sully is out on Facebook and saying that she is looking for a new pet, a Cavalier King Charles. Sully is also a patient intake coordinator at a major hospital, and she has this information listed on her Facebook page. So while Sully is out on Facebook, clicking into different dog groups, trying to find a breeder or somebody who is giving away a Cavalier King Charles, there's also a malicious person attempting to get hospital patient information out on Facebook, as this hospital patient information is really the holy grail of sensitive information that this bad actor can then get money for if they get their hands on this sensitive information. So this bad actor is searching around trying to find a way to get this hospital patient information and comes across Sully on Facebook, clicks into her profile and sees that she's a patient intake coordinator and also loves Cavalier King Charles and is looking for a new puppy. This bad actor probably figures that Sully has access to the corporate systems and the corporate drives with her role as patient intake coordinator. So all of a sudden, Sully is sent an email saying, look at this gorgeous puppy here on the screen. She clicks on the link and ransomware is put on her drive, but she doesn't realize that until she goes into her files later and she tries to open up her files that you'll see here within the demonstration and gets this message that she has to visit ransomorg.eu to pay out to get these files back. Sully has now contacted the security administrator, who we are playing today, because she wants to help navigate the drive and figure out how to get rid of this message to make sure that the files are okay. So with that, when the stage is set, we'll go into the use case for today. So due to a little bit of technical difficulties, you can't go entirely full screen, but hopefully you can see my screen well enough here. So first we'll log in as Sully and see what Sully is seeing. Okay, we will navigate into the files and see that there are these naked and protected files. So previously these files were within naked. Let's just check to make sure that the protected files, when we open them, we can gain access to them. Yes, so Sully has the policy in place that she can go in and see these protected files and can read them. And for the sake of the demonstration, they're just text files that are books, but she knows that the files that were within her naked folder are now gone. And so we click into ransom files and we see these naked files. We try to open them, and again, you see that there's a password needed in order to access these files. So Sully saved herself here by having an extra copy of these files within her protected, but had she not, these files would be completely gone and she would probably have to pay the ransom in order to get them back. Now let's log in as an administrator and see what we're able to access from their side. And we will log in as the administrator. If I can spell it correctly. And see what files they have access to in comparison to Sully, so we can understand the files Sully is working with. So if we go into Roadshow and we go into sensitive files and we go into protected, now as administrator, let's try to view these files. They're encrypted. So as you can see, due to the separation of duties, Sully was able to see the text file of the book, but the administrator can only see them through the encrypted view. Now let's go over to the ransom files. And again, you see these naked files located within this ransomware. We try to open them up and we need the password in order to access these files. Now let's go in and see what the policies were in place, and in order to make sure that we did have the encrypted files as well as the access for Sully to see those encrypted files. And this is just a view into what Sully was able to see previous to ransomware. So you could see that when we went into the drive, we went into Roadshow, sensitive files, and naked, all of these files were present. But when we clicked in after the ransomware attack, you could see that we could only access them through the protected files. Now let's look at the policies that were built in order to make sure that Sully was protected with those protected files. So this is how the ransomware really works. If everything had been encrypted, we would have had no issues with this bad actor. So if those naked files had been encrypted, then we would have been completely fine. Like we saw, thankfully, Sully had that second set of naked files in the protected folder, saving those files from being completely lost. So let's talk about building out that policy in GDE. There is an order to the rules of the policy that you can see here. So these policies are simply just orders of rules of who has access, what their process is, their action, and their effect, just like we saw on the previous slides, in order to make sure that the right users have access to the right things within your system. So first you can see there is the apply. They can apply the key and permit. This is the first rule within this policy. Second is an authorized user, and this authorized users can apply the key and permit as well. The third is the system administrator, and they are permitted certain things. And we saw that within the protected files. So they could only see the encrypted version of those files. And then everybody else is denying audit. So there's an audit trail that is kept track of in order to see who tried to gain access to what. This is how the policies and rules really work. And last thing I do want to point out is at the top, you can see that there is the learn mode, and this will help you test out whether these rules are working as you hope they would. So when you build out these rules within the policies, you can go into learn mode, and you can see it's right here at the top. You can check it and test out these policies before you put them into practice into your systems. Now this slide shows the information about the key itself, and this information is key for the auditors. So you can see the name, the description, the algorithm that was in place, the encryption mode, as well as the key hash, and if automatic key rotation is put into place for this key. If you are using encryption, your auditors need to know the parameters that you are using that encryption around. So the bottom of the screenshot shows one of the actual audits of what happened with a particular policy that was put into place. You can see who the user is, what the process was, where was the actual data that was being looked at, and what was the effect. Was it denied, approved, allowed, permitted? This is all of the information in the audit trail that occurred that will be useful for future use in working with your auditors. And that's really it for today. It's a really quick use case. We just wanted to show the inner workings of ransomware and how GDE at a high level can help protect you from being a victim of ransomware. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Nicole, and we can help you with any questions. And just so you're aware, as you saw, it was built very similarly with the policies to Guardium data protection, and it gives a really streamlined platform approach to data protection from our security approach. So thank you again for listening in on today's session. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Anna,
This is Jeff. Oh, go ahead, Debbie.
No, I was just going to say before we close out, I do think we have a couple questions, but you can go on, Jeff.
We do, yeah. So we got a couple questions. The first one I think is just to clarify in the demo, because we were talking about encryption and ransomware, which often involves encryption. Could you just explain the difference between the encryption that Guardium is doing and any sort of malware encryption that might be happening? Sure, and Nicole, please feel free to jump in and help us there. But with the GDE policies that were in place, it is a system in order to create a policy that is built to protect any data that you are wanting to be encrypted through a simple policy process. So as you saw, it was just creating these rules that were encrypting the data that you are selecting, and it's also key to our GDE solution is key for the separation of duties for your users and who has access to what information within these policies and rules. Nicole, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so just to add on to what Anna said, our GDE solution is based off of policies, and one of the key components to those policies is the access-based control. So what it does is all of your information is encrypted, and then the access is granted based on whether the components of a rule are met or not. So if ransomware were to get into your environment, obviously it wouldn't be able to gain access because it wouldn't be able to meet the policy rules that you've set forth, and therefore it wouldn't be able to get your data and therefore encrypt it, put a key on it, and then hold your data for ransom. So it's more of an access control protection that's in place.
Great, thank you very much. Somebody else asked, or someone else said actually, that they've had difficulty managing encryption in the past. What happens if they lose their encryption keys?
That's a great question. So with GDE, we prevent deletion of keys that are active in the system settings so that there is a safe lock in place to make sure that these keys are not deleted. In addition to this, we limit access to keys with the separation of duties based on the users and their roles. So as you saw within the demonstration, Solly had different access to different files due to the rules put in place. There are also limit access to keys that you can put in place within GDE, which is just another example of the separation of those duties. So that way, a user who may not know how to navigate a certain area of the system doesn't go in and accidentally delete some keys. They wouldn't even have access or the ability to get to that. And then in addition to that, we also have system backups that are also encrypted. So we have these backups in order to make sure that these keys are not lost, and these backups are additionally encrypted so that they are not then subject to being stolen in a phishing or in an attack such as ransomware. Anything to add to that again, Nicole?
Yeah, just one thing, and there's also a really great feature in Guardium data encryption where it doesn't allow deletion of keys that are currently active. So any key being used to encrypt any data within your system, it's impossible to delete that key. So it's kind of like a fail-safe to prevent you from any, unnecessary accidents or anything like that.
That's nice. Great, thank you. There's I guess, well, two related questions, so I'll ask them together. So if they already are using native encryption in AWS or some other variety, what why would you want to use this tool, or what does it add to having native encryption already in place?
That's a great question. So if you have native encryption in AWS, don't you store the keys then in AWS? So if they have the keys, can't they decrypt? So we believe that you should encrypt in the cloud, but then hold the keys on-prem. This way you can operate with total control of who sees your data, and it allows you to cryptographically delete data. If the keys are in the cloud and the encrypted data is in the cloud, you simply delete your access to the data, but not the true data. With GDE, you can make sure that the data is essentially garbage by deleting your on-prem keys and then complying with GDPR and CCPA with the right to be forgotten. With native encryption, if you just have native encryption in place, you don't have the benefits of the separation of duties that we saw, access control policies that Nicole mentioned, consistent policy enforcement, so you don't have something that is in place throughout your entire organization, so that you can make sure that policies are the same across the board. And then finally, the records for audit trails that you saw in the last few slides. And this is key for our auditors. You see that they want extensive trails when they are working with you, and this makes your life and their life a whole lot easier with these audit trails. Does that answer your question?
I think it does, yeah. You covered, both sides of it. Thank you. There's a couple more. The next question is, you had at the beginning sort of talking about, you had policies where users could be, permitted and denied access. What happens if there's a conflict, if a user is, sort of permitted and denied access to a resource based on different policies?
That's a great question. So that's when learn mode really comes into great practice. So we weren't able to click into that today, but with learn mode, you can make sure that the policies and the rules that you have put in place don't overwrite one another before actually putting them into practice in your organization. So that is a very, reasonable question to ask. How do you make sure that certain policies don't step on one another, and that the right person has access to the right files or does not have access to certain files? You can go into learn mode and test it out based off of the users, based off of what you've given them access to, and based off of the action that you want to take place before actually putting that policy into place, to make sure that everything is going according to how you want it to be, and that your users have access to what they need to have access to in order to get their work done. So that is one of the nice features of GDE that will help make sure that that doesn't happen. Anything else you can think that would address this, Nicole?
Yeah, so Anna, could you go back to the audit slide super quick?
Sure.
So if you'll see there on the right side of the screen, it has a little snapshot of what's in our logs. So say you go through learn mode and put a policy in place and it's working as you expect, but obviously you can't always plan for every single scenario, and a user gets denied. You'll be able to go through these log files and pick out exactly what happened and how you can remediate that. So if you look at the very end of the log entry, Anna, do you mind going back? Yeah, it'll say like effect denied, and that little code there will tell you exactly what portion of the rule failed. So for rule number 1, it'll say, the action was incorrect. For number 2, the user didn't match. 3, the action didn't match again. And then 4, since that's our catch-all deny rule, it'll say M for met. So depending on what rule you expect that user's action to correlate to, and therefore get them a permit response, you can fine-tune the rule to allow that access. So your logging is going to be really beneficial to kind of help fine-tune those rules and make sure that your environment's working as you expect it to.
All right, that's actually some great detail. Thank you. And I'm just checking. The last question we have is, does this automatically make me compliant with encryption regulations? Obviously, I guess particular encryption regulations, but.
So we will never say that you are 100% compliant, but this tool does help you get there to achieve compliance. You must correctly implement the policies and procedures in order to adhere to the regulation in question, and GDE provides all of the tools to ensure you're able to do so. So all of the tools are there at your fingertips in order to make you compliant, but it's up to your team and everybody to make sure that everything is in practice to make sure that you will be fully compliant and use these tools correctly. So it's at your fingertips. You just need to make sure that everything is put into place and put into work in order to achieve compliance.
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah, that's very true. This is a help, but there's other processes you have to make sure you're following.
Exactly.
All right, I think those are all the questions that we have. I want to thank everyone for attending today. And again, we've got 2 more episodes of this series coming up the next 2 Tuesdays, closing out June. And I hope to see people Thursday for the Take 30 with the Data Advisor.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.